In 1962, a retired school teacher in rural Tennessee lived on $40 a month total, including rent, utilities, groceries, everything. She never went hungry. Her secret wasn't coupons. It wasn't food stamps. It was 30 meals she knew by heart. Meals her mother had taught her during the Depression. Meals that came from nothing and made something that lasted days. Number 22 costs less than $1.20 and feeds a person for 3 days. Number 7 was invented during World War II rationing. Number 3 was so looked down upon that prosperity made an entire generation pretend they'd never eaten it. Their grandchildren now order it in Manhattan for $18 and call it rustic Italian. These 30 meals were engineered by people with no margin for error. People living on Social Security checks that ran out before the month did. People who understood something the modern food industry has spent billions making you forget. The most nourishing food on earth comes in a bag of dried beans. Hit subscribe. Let's count down the 30 forgotten pantry meals that kept a generation of retirees alive, independent, and eating better than they had any right to. Number 30, pinto bean soup. A bag of dried pinto beans, an onion, water, and salt. That's the entire recipe. Soak overnight, simmer 2 hours. The beans burst open. The broth turns thick and creamy without a drop of cream. Cost in 1975, 18 cents a serving. Today, around 35 cents. A 2-pound bag still feeds one person for nearly a week. For a retiree on a tight budget, this was arithmetic. Social Security came in on the 3rd. You bought the beans. The beans covered you until the next check. 15 grams of protein per cup, more fiber than most vegetables. The generation that ate this 3 times a week felt full, felt fine, and the money lasted. Number 29, milk toast. Buttered toast broken into chunks, placed in a bowl, covered with hot milk. Sometimes sweetened, sometimes salted. That's milk toast. In the 1930s through 1950s, this was what elderly Americans ate when they were sick, when their teeth hurt, when cooking felt like too much. Heat milk, toast bread, break, pour, done in under 4 minutes. The name became a mild insult in American English. The people who ate it didn't care. They cared that it was warm, soft, and required almost nothing from a body that didn't have much to give. Hospitals served modified versions to post-surgery patients well into the 1980s. Your great-grandmother called it breakfast. The hospital called it a soft diet, same meal. Number 28, potato and egg scramble. 2 potatoes, 2 eggs, an onion if you have one. Bacon grease in the skillet. Dice the potatoes small. Fry until crisped at the edges. Pour in the beaten eggs. Scramble together. Under 50 cents in any decade you care to name. The weekend breakfast of every working-class household in America from 1920 through 1970. When those households grew old and the families moved away, the retirees kept making it because it worked. It was fast, and potatoes and eggs kept for a week without going bad. 1 pan, maybe 15 minutes, no recipe card required. Number 27, creamed tuna on toast. A can of tuna, a white sauce from butter, flour, and milk, poured over toast. This meal fed the American military, hospital system, and retiree population for most of the 20th century. Church cookbooks called it tuna a la king to make it sound fancier. In kitchens where money was tight, it was simply called supper. A can of tuna cost 29 cents in 1968 and still costs under $1 today. 25 grams of protein, one of the best sources of B12 available. Elderly people frequently become deficient in B12 without knowing it, leading to fatigue, cognitive decline, and nerve damage. Your grandmother wasn't eating creamed tuna because she liked it. She was eating it because her body needed it. Number 26. Stewed tomatoes and bread. Open a can of tomatoes. Add a pinch of sugar, salt, a pat of butter. Simmer 5 minutes. Tear in day-old bread. Let it soak 2 minutes. Italian immigrants brought this to tenement kitchens. Farmers' wives made it when winter gardens were empty. The bread absorbs the tomato liquid and swells into something soft and porridge-like. No real chewing required, which mattered more than any recipe card ever acknowledged. In Italy, they call it ribollita. In Manhattan, they charge $22 for it. In 1955, in rural Ohio, a widow named it Tuesday. These meals are not recipes. They are survival infrastructure built by people with no margin for error. Pantry. Cooking means building meals from shelf-stable fundamentals: dried beans, canned goods, root vegetables, eggs, ingredients that cost pennies on the dollar, store for months, and contain more nutrition than most of what fills modern grocery carts. The generation that retired in the 1960s and 1970s knew this the way they knew their own names. They had learned it during the Depression and practiced it during rationing. By the time they were living alone on Social Security, it was reflex. What follows is not nostalgia, it is instruction. Number 25. Navy bean and ham hock soup. A bag of dried navy beans, a ham hock, an onion, celery, water. Soak overnight, simmer for 3 hours. The beans dissolve into cream. The ham hock gives up every trace of smokiness it contains. The broth gets so thick you can almost stand a spoon in it. The United States Senate has served navy bean soup every single day since 1903. Not out of sentiment, because the bean is dense, filling, and $1.50 for 2 pounds feeds one person for a week. For a retiree managing diabetes, navy beans produce one of the lowest glycemic responses of any carbohydrate. That's not something anyone in 1955 Iowa was tracking. They just felt steady all afternoon after a bowl, and that was the only study that mattered. Number 24. Fried cornmeal mush. Boil water, stir in cornmeal until thick, pour into a loaf pan, refrigerate overnight. In the morning, slice thick, fry in oil until golden on both sides. Eat with molasses, syrup, or just salt. A pound of cornmeal, 15 cents in the 1970s, under 50 cents today, makes 4 or 5 breakfasts. The make-ahead nature is the whole point. Cook it once on Sunday, slice and fry for the rest of the week, 7 minutes each morning. The corn dodger, the hoe cake, the Johnny cake. Every American culture that knew poverty knew this dish. It just wore different names. Number 23. Lentil and tomato soup. A cup of red lentils, a can of crushed tomatoes, an onion, garlic, cumin, salt. 1 pot, 30 minutes. Red lentils dissolve as they cook. No blender, no mashing. Into a thick, velvety soup that looks like something you'd pay $14 for at a health food restaurant. The cost, roughly 40 cents a serving, unchanged in any meaningful way since 1950. Lentils don't require soaking. You can decide at noon and eat by 12:45. 1 cup cooked, 18 grams of protein, 16 grams of fiber, nearly half the daily recommended folate. Protein. A widow in Missouri ate lentil stew 3 nights a week for 11 years after her husband died. Her iron levels were perfect. She said it was just what her mother taught her: iron. Number 22. Cabbage and potatoes. Half a head of cabbage, 3 potatoes, an onion, butter, salt. Into the pot with just enough water to cover. Simmer 40 minutes. This recipe has fed poor families in Ireland, Poland, Germany, and Appalachia, wherever winter comes hard and money comes short. The potatoes break apart slightly, and thicken the broth. The cabbage turns soft and sweet. A head of cabbage costs under $1 and lasts weeks in the refrigerator. Potatoes keep for months in a cool, dark place. Together with an onion, you have a week of meals for under $3. Cabbage supports gut health. Potatoes provide more potassium than a banana. It was not a hardship meal. It was medicine that happened to look like supper. Number 21, rice pudding. 2 cups cooked rice, 2 cups milk, 2 tablespoons sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, 1 egg stirred in at the end. Simmer 20 minutes until thick and creamy. Under 20 cents a serving in 1970, still well under $1 today. For a person with appetite loss, which affects a significant percentage of adults over 75, the sweetness of rice pudding was a bridge. A way to consume calories and protein when savory food held no appeal. Warm, sweet, soft food gets eaten when nothing else does. Your grandmother knew that before any nutritionist wrote it down. Number 20, canned salmon cakes. A can of salmon, bones and all, mashed with cracker crumbs, 1 egg, a little onion, formed into patties and fried until golden, 4 minutes per side. The bones in canned salmon are soft enough to eat and contain more calcium than a glass of milk. Under $2 for 4 servings, over 20 grams of protein each. Doctors now specifically recommend canned salmon to elderly patients concerned about osteoporosis. The generation that made salmon cakes every Friday didn't know the mechanism. They knew it was cheap and good and held together in the pan. That was enough. Number 19, split pea and barley soup. Split peas, pearl barley, a carrot, an onion, a ham bone, or smoked sausage. Everything into the pot. Enough water to cover by 3 inches. Low heat, 2 hours. No monitoring required. By the end, the peas have dissolved. The barley has swollen and thickened the broth to something you could almost eat with a fork. Deep, earthy, satisfying in a way convenient soups never quite manage. Pearl barley contains beta-glucan, the same soluble fiber found in oat bran, clinically proven to reduce LDL cholesterol. The FDA issued a formal health claim for it in 1997. Your grandmother was eating it in her split PEA soup decades before anyone published a study. Number 18, macaroni and tomatoes. A box of elbow macaroni, a can of diced tomatoes, butter, salt. Cook the pasta, drain it, return it to the pot with the tomatoes and butter. Simmer 5 minutes. Called macaroni and tomatoes in every region. Made differently by every family. Some used tomato soup, some added cheese, some used egg noodles. None of that mattered. A box of pasta and a can of tomatoes together cost under $1, made 2 or 3 nights of dinner, and required 15 minutes of active cooking, 1 pot, 15 minutes standing, 2 nights covered. Number 17, cream of wheat with butter and salt. Cooked farina made with water or milk, eaten with a generous pat of butter and a pinch of salt instead of sugar. Savory, not sweet. Dense, not thin. Warm all the way down. Factory workers ate it before early shifts. Farmers ate it before dawn. Elderly people ate it because it was soft, fast, cost a few cents, and the warm weight of it in the stomach felt like being taken care of. Farina is enriched with iron and B vitamins, important for elderly people who are frequently iron deficient in ways that manifest as fatigue and cognitive fog rather than any obvious symptom. Your great-grandmother didn't eat cream of wheat because it was all she had. She ate it because it worked. Number 16, black-eyed pea and collard stew. Dried black-eyed peas, collard greens, a smoked ham hock, onion, garlic, water. Low heat, time. This has been the meal of the American South for over 200 years, crossing every economic line because poverty in the South crossed every line. 1 cup of cooked collard greens contains more calcium than a glass of milk and more vitamin K than almost any other food, essential for bone density and blood clotting in elderly patients on anticoagulants. The stew improves over 2 or 3 days. A pot that lasts nearly a week costs consistently under $4. In any decade since 1940, the American grocery store contains 40,000 products. The food industry spends $14 billion a year making sure you buy from packages rather than bulk bins. A bag of dried lentils costs $1.29, more protein per dollar than anything on the shelf. A head of cabbage costs 79 cents, lasts 2 weeks. Dried navy beans cost $1.50 for 2 pounds, feeds 1 person a week. None of these has an advertising budget. None of them needs one. They have something better. 100 years of evidence that the people who ate them came out healthier than the generation that replaced them with frozen dinners. Number 15, vegetable beef soup. A pound of beef stew, meat, whatever vegetables needed to be used, potato going soft, carrot going limp, celery wilting, a can of tomatoes, water, salt. Brown the meat first, everything else on top. Lid on, 90 minutes. This was the clean out the fridge meal that every resourceful cook knew by heart. For a retiree living alone on a careful budget, it solved a specific problem no nutrition label accounts for: food guilt. When you live alone and the celery starts to turn, there's a particular demoralization that comes from watching food go to waste. The soup pot solved that. Nothing was wasted. The soup took care of everything. Number 14, eggs and rice. Leftover rice pressed into a hot buttered skillet until the bottom crisps, eggs scrambled in, dash of soy sauce, 7 minutes, 1 pan, under 50 cents, 14 grams of protein. This is what the entire Asian culinary world calls fried rice and has been making for thousands of years. In Depression-era America, it was just what you did with leftover rice, because wasting cooked rice felt like a sin. Cold rice contains more resistant starch than fresh. It feeds beneficial gut bacteria and slows sugar absorption. The leftover rice habit was not just practical, it was nutritionally superior to starting fresh. Number 13, white bean and sausage stew. 2 cans of white beans, 1 smoked sausage link sliced into coins, a can of diced tomatoes, spinach if you had it, onion, garlic, broth, 20 minutes. The result looked like a real dinner. It tasted like something that had been cooking all day. Around $3 for 4 servings. The smoked sausage was key, not because it was the main ingredient, but because it made the pot smell like food, like something worth sitting down for. For elderly eaters with diminished appetite, that smell activated hunger in a way a bowl of plain beans simply doesn't. The sausage wasn't indulgence. It was medicine for the appetite. Number 12. Oatmeal with savory toppings, not the packets. Rolled oats cooked in water or broth until thick and creamy, topped with a fried egg or peanut butter or canned fish or simply butter and salt. Savory oatmeal is something Scotland and much of Asia never stopped eating. A container of rolled oats costs $3 and provides 30 servings, 3 cents per meal. Topped with a fried egg, you have complete carbohydrates, protein, fat, and soluble fiber in one bowl. The generation that ate this regularly, before boxed cereal, convinced America that flakes were modern, consistently showed lower rates of cardiovascular disease. The oats never changed. We just stopped eating them right. Number 11, canned bean chili. 2 cans of kidney beans, a can of diced tomatoes, a can of tomato sauce, half a pound of ground beef if you had it, chili powder, cumin, salt. 30 minutes. Better on day 2. Better still on day 3. Make it Sunday. Eat it Monday lunch. Tuesday dinner. Wednesday over rice. Thursday scrambled with an egg. 1 pot. 4 days. Under $4. Church food pantries have packed chili ingredients for 60 years. They know what works. They know what stretches. They know exactly who's going to make it and how far it needs to last. Half of Americans over 65 who live alone are food insecure at some point during any given year. Not starving, insecure. Days when the money runs out before the month does. A $15 pantry investment in dried beans, canned tomatoes, rice, and oatmeal provides a week of nutritionally complete meals for one person. A $15 investment in frozen convenience meals provides 4. What separates them is not money. It is knowledge, the practical, generational knowledge of how to turn raw ingredients into real food. That knowledge was the most valuable thing the generation before us possessed. We were systematically encouraged to forget it after 1955. What follows is an attempt to remember. Number 10, chicken and rice soup. Bone-in, chicken pieces, an onion, carrots, celery, cold water to cover, salt, low flame, 2 hours. Strip the meat, return it to the pot. Add a cup of rice, cook 20 minutes more. In 1970, this cost about $1.50. Today, around $3 for 5 or 6 servings. The broth produced by simmering bones contains collagen, glycine, and gelatin, compounds now sold in expensive powdered supplements marketed at exactly the elderly population that used to consume them naturally every week. Your grandmother made it because it was cheap, and it was what her mother taught her. Her joints were fine. She slept well. Her gut gave her no trouble. For a retiree recovering from illness, this is one of the few foods that genuinely earns its reputation as medicine. Number 9, red beans and rice, the Monday meal of New Orleans. Born from the tradition of doing laundry all day while supper simmered unattended. Dried red kidney beans, smoked sausage, onion, green pepper, celery, garlic, pot on at noon. Come back at 5. By dinner, the beans have dissolved into a thick, dark, deeply flavored gravy. Served over white rice, a complete amino acid profile, all essential amino acids in a single plant-based meal. Louis Armstrong signed his personal letters, "Red beans and ricely yours," not as a joke, as a statement of where he came from and what had always kept him going. Number 8, potato soup. 5 potatoes, 1 onion, butter, milk, salt. Peel and dice, simmer until tender, mash some right in the pot, add milk and butter, heavy pinch of salt. 30 minutes. Here is where this becomes specific. For elderly Americans dealing with dental problems, missing teeth, ill-fitting dentures, mouths that made chewing a labor, potato soup wasn't just convenient. It was one of the only genuinely satisfying hot meals they could eat without pain. Not crackers over the sink. A real dinner. The Depression generation didn't talk about dental care because most of them couldn't afford it. They quietly adapted their cooking until everything was soft enough. Potato soup was the centerpiece of that adaptation. A 5-pound bag costs under $4 and feeds one person for 3 days. Number 7, Depression. Stew ground beef, browned in a pot, a can of tomatoes, a can of corn, 2 diced potatoes, water, salt, pepper, nothing else. Depression-era cookbooks listed it simply as stew. Mothers penciled it into recipe card margins and whispered it to daughters on wedding days like a secret. It was everywhere and nameless because naming it would have required acknowledging what those years had demanded. A retired steelworker in Pittsburgh ate this stew every night for 3 years in the 1980s after his wife died and his pension was cut. His doctor said his blood work at 78 was better than most men half his age. He said his mother had taught him, when money gets tight, you make the stew. He made it until he was 91. Number 6. Pinto beans and cornbread. For the rural South, the Appalachians, the Ozarks, and the Plains states, this wasn't just a meal. It was the meal. The one that defined poverty cooking for a century. Dried pintos cooked low for 3 hours with a ham hock until the broth turns thick and brown. Cornbread in a seasoned cast iron skillet, 20 minutes in the oven, golden and cracking on the crust. You soak the cornbread in the bean liquor and eat it that way, the bread drinking up the broth. A bag of dried pintos, $1.50. A box of cornmeal, $1.25. Under $3. A pot that lasts days. Nothing to photograph, nothing to explain. Only a full belly and the knowledge that tomorrow you could do it again. Number 5. Ham and bean soup. When the ham was gone, gnawed to the bone after Sunday dinner, the bone became the next 3 meals. Ham bone, soaked navy beans, onion, carrots, 4 hours on low. The beans turn creamy. The broth pulls every last molecule of smoky flavor from the bone. By the end, the broth and beans become the same thing. Thick, unified, deeply savory, spoons supporting. You buy the ham, Sunday dinner. The leftovers, Monday lunch. The bone, which costs nothing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. One purchase, 5 meals. A 1-pound bag of dried navy beans cost 69 cents in 1990. Today, $1.49. It feeds one person for a week. The ham bone was free. This was not resourcefulness as a personality trait. It was arithmetic as survival. Number 4. Chicken thigh and sweet potato pot. Chicken thighs were the forgotten cut. Americans decided white meat was better. Supermarkets priced dark meat at half the cost of breasts. Retired cooks who had learned during the Depression knew better. 2 bone-in skin-on thighs, 2 sweet potatoes cubed, an onion quartered, a cup of broth, salt, pepper, thyme. Everything into one pot. Lid on. Oven at 375 degrees for 45 minutes. The chicken falls from the bone. The sweet potatoes caramelize at the edges. The pot smells like something that took all day. The fat and dark meat kept the meat moist and the dish rich in a way boneless, skinless breast never could, which made the difference for a retiree with a dwindling appetite between pushing food around the plate and finishing the meal. Number 3. Bean and vegetable soup. This is the meal with no fixed recipe. It is a method. Whatever dried beans were in the pantry, whatever vegetables were in the crisper, whatever aromatics were available, into the pot. Water to cover, low heat, however long it took. A retired school teacher in rural Tennessee made a version of this every single week for 30 years after her husband died. The beans changed, the vegetables changed, the method never changed. She kept a small notebook by the stove recording what she'd used, not to repeat it, but to remember what had worked. When she died at 94, her daughter found the notebook. Inside the front cover, in careful schoolteacher handwriting, nothing wasted, nobody hungry. That was the whole recipe. Number 2. Oatmeal and everything else. This entry is not about oatmeal. It is about the principle oatmeal represents, the universal base ingredient that accepts whatever you put on it and turns it into a meal. Oatmeal with peanut butter and honey is a complete meal, under 50 cents, 15 grams of protein. Cooked in chicken broth topped with a soft-boiled egg and soy sauce, it becomes dinner. With jam or a sliced banana, it tastes like a treat. With nothing but butter and brown sugar, it is the meal that gets eaten when appetite is completely gone and only the familiar will work. $3 buys a container that lasts a month, 5 minutes to prepare. Soft enough, simple enough, filling enough to call a meal on any kind of day. The oats don't care whether you understand the mechanism, they work anyway. Number 1. Chicken soup. We end here not because it is the most frugal or the most nutritious, though it is arguably both. We end here because of what it means. A whole chicken, or pieces, or a carcass saved from last night's roast, an onion, 2 carrots, 2 stalks of celery, parsley if you had it, cold water to cover by 4 inches, salt, low heat, 2 hours. The house fills with a smell that exists in every human memory, regardless of culture. Every culture on earth has a version. Jewish penicillin, Vietnamese pho, Chinese congee, Greek avgolemono. Every culture, without exception, looked at a chicken simmering in water and arrived at the same conclusion. This is medicine. Modern research confirms the inflammation reduction, the glycine supporting sleep and joints, the electrolytes. But that is not why it is number 1. It is number 1 because of what it does to a kitchen. When you make chicken soup for yourself, alone, in a quiet house on a Tuesday afternoon, something happens. The silence becomes a choice rather than an absence. The act of cooking becomes a way of saying that you are worth the trouble. That is what all of these meals were always about. Not survival as grim necessity. Survival as an act of dignity. Your grandmother knew that. The school teacher in Tennessee knew it. The steel worker in Pittsburgh who lived to 91 on the same stew knew it. Now you know it too. Pick one meal from this list. Just one. The pinto beans, the lentil soup, the chicken thigh pot, the potato soup. Something with a short ingredient list and a long payoff. Make it this week. And when you sit down to eat it, sit at the table, not the couch. Set a place, eat it slow, drop a comment and tell me which one you're going to make. I want to know if the depression stew gets the love it deserves. I want to know if anyone else has a grandmother who made chicken soup every week without a written recipe, from memory, from habit, from love, because these are not forgotten meals. They are proof that the simplest food, made in one pot, eaten alone in a quiet kitchen, can still be an act of defiance, an act of dignity, an act of hope. Your grandmother knew that. Time to remember it.